In August 1793, with the support of the royalists, the anti-French coalition managed to capture Toulon. Facing a deep crisis, the French made several attempts to retake the city. Finally, in December, the French forces, under the command of Napoleon, launched a final assault. These events represent not only the siege of a city, but also the birth of a military genius, Napoleon Bonaparte, who would change the course of world history. Let us travel to those bloody and decisive months of 1793, into the depths of the Siege of Toulon. The year 1793 was a time of chaos and blood for France. On one hand, the country was fighting foreign enemies, while on the other, a fierce civil war raged within. The brutal policies of the central government had caused serious unrest in the French provinces, especially in the southern regions. Toulon was not just an ordinary city, it was France's most important naval base in the Mediterranean. In August, realizing they would face the vengeance of the revolutionaries, the royalists of Toulon took an unprecedented step. They surrendered the city and the fleet to the coalition forces commanded by the British Admiral, Lord Hood. This was a fatal blow to the young French Republic. The Republican government immediately sent an army to lay siege to the city. However, the first commanders of the army were completely devoid of military experience. Their direct assaults yielded no results, only leading to the vain loss of soldiers. It was precisely at this moment that the artillery commander of the siege army was severely wounded. This coincidence created an opportunity that would completely change the course of history. Appointed to this position was a young and unknown 24-year-old artillery captain, Napoleon Bonaparte. When Napoleon arrived in Toulon in September, he saw a pitiful sight before him. The artillery forces were scattered, cannons were scarce, and most importantly, the command had no logical plan. The young officer immediately got to work. He understood that launching a land assault on a city protected by strong fortifications would be impossible. Napoleon's plan was simple yet genius. The target must not be the city, but the fleet. To achieve this, the peninsula to the south of the city had to be captured. If the harbor came under fire, the British and Spanish ships would be forced to leave, and once the fleet was gone, the garrison would simply have to surrender. The British had also understood the importance of this height, and fortified the fort there so much that they called it Little Gibraltar. Napoleon prepared for months to attack this fort. He established new artillery positions, personally inspired the soldiers, and stood at the cannons himself. By mid-December, the preparations were complete. On the night of December 17th, in dark and stormy weather, the French forces launched a decisive attack. The battle was extremely bloody and ruthless. Napoleon himself dismounted his horse and fought shoulder to shoulder with his soldiers, and was even severely wounded in the thigh. By morning, the fort had fallen into French hands, wasting no time. Napoleon brought his cannons up to the height and immediately began firing directly at the British fleet. Napoleon's scenario unfolded with absolute precision. Facing the cannon fire, Lord Hood immediately gave the order to evacuate. The evacuation took place in absolute chaos. Ships were burned. Armories were blown up. On December 19th, the Republican army entered the city. The recapture of Toulon was a victory of vital importance for the French Republic. But the greatest historical significance of this battle lay in its creator. The 24-year-old captain, with his unshakable will and strategic vision, had achieved the seemingly impossible. The siege of this small city was not just a military operation. It was the first epic entrance onto the stage of history, of the man who would shake all of Europe, forge new borders, and create a new empire, Napoleon Bonaparte.